The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest in the world, and we just happen to live in them. One thing we can tell you, there are ghosts in the mountains.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. I am your highly pollen-filled host, Caleb Hanks, and tonight I am joined, as always, by, you know him, you love him, DCB, the Dr. Captain Burgess. Brother, how are your sinuses faring in the midst of the repollination?
It's brutal out there, but other than that, I'm doing pretty well. Sinus trouble is... I get affected by pollen, but I feel like the past 2 days have been pretty intense.
I would have to agree with you because it's not very often that I'm just sitting there with my eyes burning. And last night I was just sitting there in the house, just like, Oh my God, what happened? But, I am happy to see some of the pollen because the forest is regrowing after all of the destruction from Helene.
And we got some damn rain finally.
Yeah, we did get some rain. Yeah, it was like there was no rain for like a month. Blind Melon, I think that was the band that did that song with the Bumblebee Suit Girl, talking about no rain.
Oh, yeah.
They would have been very excited.
Right.
But, speaking of the rain and the downpour from Helene and all that stuff, well, half this town got washed down the river in 1916. And then again in 2024, I think it was.
It was 2024.
But, tonight we're going to be talking about some other strange river-related things. We may never know how much of this town actually went down the river. But tonight, something going down the river is a little bit of lesser-known Asheville haunting history, which I was kind of surprised to find this one because it's pretty rare that there's, something haunted related that I've just completely never heard of.
At least in Asheville city limits, though.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's not impossible. That definitely does happen. I mean, especially with an independent residence or something like that, or just somebody I don't know whose house was haunted as shit. But this is an interesting one because this seems to be relatively in the public sphere. But, what would you even call this one?
The title is The Naked Ghost of the Craven Street Bridge. And of course, no one is going to believe we did this accidentally because it was pure coincidence, at least to my knowledge, that we ended up landing on the Naked Ghost episode for episode 69.
All right. But it is what it is. Just deal with it. All right, fam.
But I'm kind of glad it synchronistically worked out that way either way, honestly.
Yeah, it's weird. We're almost at episode 70.
Yeah. Got a big one coming up potentially.
That's right. And that has nothing to do with the number 69.
So anyways, to set the stage for this one, this actually takes place on a bridge in Asheville known as the Craven Street Bridge. And that's located basically right behind, or depends which way you're going into, but it's right by the New Belgium Brewery, which is basically there in the River Arch District. So pretty, well-known landmark for that area. And as Caleb mentioned, this bridge does cross over the French Broad River, which is a bit of a tie back to the Siren of the French Broad River episode with some similar themes, if you will, on that one.
I was a little surprised that this one didn't come up when we did that episode.
Yeah.
Because you had a lot of naked weirdness going on in that episode.
Well, with the Siren of the French Broad, that story takes place outside of Asheville. I think it specifically kind of makes the notion that it's towards Madison County. Where,
Marshall maybe.
Yeah, a lot of people believed it was that Paint Rock area down by Hot Springs. But yeah, as we mentioned in that episode, the French Broad River does run through Asheville and into Tennessee. And, I think we've casually mentioned in a lot of other episodes that the French Broad was kind of just like this early lifeblood for Asheville, really, because the first settlers in the mountains, all through people into the early 20th century, were just basically lining the side of this river with logging camps and sawmills. And, using it to cut and ship timber all across the rest of the region. So the French Broad itself really aided itself to the economic development of Asheville early on. But on top of its economic impact to the area, the French Broad was actually a popular swimming spot to locals here in Asheville. And I guess it still kind of is to this day, to an extent. I think it's more for tubing and for kayaking and other things like that
and getting E. coli.
Yeah, I was going to say the French Broad definitely has its reputation for being pretty high levels of E. coli at all times. But specifically after heavy rains, when all the sewer starts to overflow and the septic systems are leaking and other fun stuff like that. So, I think it's more known for tubing and kayaking. But back in the day, I guess it was kind of a popular swimming spot for the Asheville locals because, we talked about some of the other areas of the French Broad that are really rushing and there's some dangerous spots. But for all intents and purposes, when it's coming through Asheville, it's kind of a slow path through Asheville. And it's, what could be seen as just like a cool, inviting water and a nice place to take a little dip on a hot summer day.
But it's completely contaminated and
well,
you will die.
Maybe back in the early 1900s, it was a different story. Who knows?
No, I'm sure it was. Before the Industrial Revolution, that river was pristine.
Maybe. I wasn't around for that, so I can't speak to that. So, have you ever tubed or anything down the French Broad?
I have, actually.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, before I actually researched and realized how gross that kind of is.
Yeah, I came out unscathed.
Same.
I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, tubing's great. When I lived in Brevard, it was a lot easier just to do that straight down the forest where the water is pristine and clean. But,
there you go. I had a buddy, though, who got a pretty horrendous infection from it. So I'll just put it that way.
On that same trip with you?
In the summertime, we'd go down the river on tubes pretty frequently. Three or four times a year.
Okay.
But one of those trips, one of our friends did not come out so great.
Is that when you learned the grossness of the river?
That's about when I stopped.
Yeah. Did a little research there.
Yep.
Well, I think this is kind of a good place to start today's story because this one does take place sometime in the early 1900s when maybe the river was a little nicer. Can't verify that, but maybe it was fit for swimming. I can't say. But according to the story, one hot summer day, there was a group of young boys that went swimming in the river just to cool off. And they were out on the western edge of the city, just south of where now I-240 crosses over the river. And apparently these were the days when bathing suits were something that not everyone owned. Apparently it was just commonplace to strip naked and go swimming that way. And according to the source here, it says, in a way, things were more relaxed back then. So kind of side note here, because that part of the story just sounded a little far-fetched when I was initially reading it, that bathing suits just weren't commonplace in the early 1900s.
I mean, I kind of get that.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, you're right, because I looked into it, because I just thought this was kind of like a convenient way to set it up. Like, oh, it's a naked ghost, so of course they were skinny dipping. And bathing suits just weren't a thing back then. But, I looked it up, and there's actually a forum or a little, Quora site, whatever, you could answer the questions or you ask a question and get it answered. And someone asked fairly recently in the early 1900s, did people wear bathing suits to swim? Exactly what I needed to know. And the top answer actually kind of surprised me because it says, depends. In segregated facilities like the YMCA and YWCA, where men and women were separate, nude swimming was common. The pool I swam in as a kid did not allow swimsuits. Male and females were not allowed to swim in the pool at the same time, and swimsuits were considered unsanitary. Yeah.
I kind of always figured it was just because it was like clothing and things like that weren't as easy to come by back
designed
in the day.
By like
and
that.
They didn't want to mess them up. So they're like, dude, why would I jump in with my clothes on?
Yeah, exactly. So he goes on to say that by the time he graduated high school, co-ed swimming was allowed and everyone was finally starting to wear swimming suits, but that was around like 1969. So I don't know how long this trend went on for.
Or why the number 69 keeps popping up.
Right? But he did say even back in the early 1900s, when you're on the beach, people were more accustomed to wearing some sort of swimsuits. But he said the men's swimsuits back then basically looked like women's tights, and the women's swimsuits just looked like a dress.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I could see why not everyone owned one of those, maybe just from a fashionable sense or just a practicality sense, because, it might have been just a lot easier to go skinny dipping. And clearly it was.
I also feel like I've seen movies where they were like period pieces and people were always wearing some sort of weird little like undergarment thing.
Yeah. So anyways, guess I was wrong. The naked swimming actually checks out for this time period. So moving on.
All right, there's going to be nudity, people. Buckle up.
So unfortunately, and little to their knowledge, the boys had picked a really bad time to go swimming because there had been really bad storms upriver a few days before, and the usually calm stretch of the French Broad that flows through Asheville was flowing a lot more swiftly than normal. And the gentle eddies where the river flowed over the boulders lying in the bed, they'd become dangerous undercurrents where people could easily be trapped under.
And not to mention, they had weeks of clown sightings in drains, just yelling for Georgie. People were scared to death.
So the boys were playing and laughing, not noticing that they were floating further and further and faster down the river than usual.
We all float down here, Austin. Sorry, I'll stop.
So as the sun went down and the light faded, they noticed that they had drifted down close to the pilings of the bridge where Craven Street crossed the French Broad. And the water was flowing in dangerous rapids around the bridge, and the boys quickly realized that they needed to head home. But that's when they discovered that one of their friends was missing. They searched and searched for their missing friends. One of the boys ran for help and went to find neighbors. Neighbors added to these search efforts. They brought out boats. They brought out lanterns, anything they could to try to spot any sign of life or lack of life there, if you will. But as the night grew deeper, they sadly realized that the chances of spotting this boy had run out. So they made the choice to call off the search for the night. By the next day, the boats went out right at daylight to dredge the river, but to no avail. The child's body was never found. And searchers surmised that the French Broad's powerful undercurrents, specifically around those rocks and pilings, captured the swimmer, holding him down while the rapids pounded and dragged his body to death. So it was not long after the search was called off that people began to report seeing, oddly enough, a naked boy running across the bridge. Some thought it might be a prank, except for what happened every single time that the boy was spotted. People would call out to the runner, but he seemed to not even be able to hear them. And just as the runner got close to the end of the bridge, he would completely vanish and disappear into thin air. It was almost like the naked ghost could never get across the bridge.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of sad. And according to the website of the local Applewood Manor that kind of recounted this story, they say ghost stories have always been around. Folklore abounds with stories of hauntings and sightings. Most people believe they are made-up tales, but there's something different to this one. There are too many stories in a place filled with smart, intelligent people. Some say it is different here because things can die slowly in these mountains of Asheville. They say there are powerful paranormal and energy vortexes in our mountains due to the quartz content.
Oh, weird.
Including clear crystal quartz. And these forces have labeled Asheville as the most haunted place on the planet. Perhaps the difference, the mountain energy, is the thing that is keeping the soul of our naked spirit bound to the place of his death, the place that prevented him from returning home from his swimming adventure. Is it that he can never rest until he can cross the Craven Street Bridge to go home? We may never know.
Bound here by the Mountain Energy gas station and Candler at Boone's Corner. Not really. That's really interesting, though, that other people are speaking so frankly about this idea that the quartz is something that is augmenting the paranormal activity.
That's exactly what I thought, especially on this episode, because I'm like, this is not one that I would think would have a common tie-in to the quartz theory that, you know, has kind of been popping up here and there over episodes. But it's pretty interesting because Applewood Manor, I guess it's kind of like a little historic manor, and they've got some blogs about local stuff in the area, and they do some ghost tales and some of their stuff. So I've come across their website before, but they never really mention the quartz element until they're talking about this random Craven Street Bridge haunting that they feel the need to kind of tie this theory into, which I thought was very odd timing, to say the least.
I completely agree. Because it was not long ago that you and I think on the midnight broadcast, kind of went down the rabbit hole with that stuff.
Yeah. I think we really started to, and I mean, it's something we've been toying with. I mean, I think we've toyed with the idea of something weird being about quartz the whole time, but then, you know, you get into the stone tape theory, you start talking to people that throw out the ideas of some of the geological anomalies in the mountains causing certain things, certain whatever you want to call them, light sensations to happen. Mm-hmm. And then you even talk to people like Kyle, who talks about his family land that's rich in quartz and stuff like that. So
very true. Yeah, and also tying it back to areas like Chimney Rock, where it's just like, here's this weird, heightened, state of geological formation, and then the next thing you know, you have battles of the angels in the sky in the area and shit like that. So anyway.
Yeah, so pretty interesting that phrasing just kind of came up in a pretty unexpected article on this, because it's not one that I would have linked to a quartz theory just right off the bat. But no. I like that we found that.
Yep.
So, of course, I did my best to try to find any firsthand accounts of people who've experienced anything weird on this bridge specifically, or maybe even seen the naked ghosts themselves. But unfortunately, I couldn't find not a single firsthand account for anything here.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't even really trace where the story originated either, which is kind of odd. I've got a fair amount of books on local Western North Carolina, Asheville, ghost stories, lore like that. And the only book I could find this story in was Mysterious Tales of Western North Carolina by Sherman Carmichael. But when you go to his sources, he actually listed that same North Carolina ghost website article that you linked me as his source for the story. So,
and what year was his book published? Do you have that on hand?
I don't have it on hand.
But it was relatively recent.
It was like at 2020 or after, sometime fairly recently.
I thought that was the book that I was thinking of. Okay. All right.
So, yeah, not sure how far this tale can really be traced back. And, while I wasn't able to trace or historically verify the exact incident that happened in the story, the French Broad River itself does really have a long history of tragic events and deaths and drownings. So,
yeah, I mean, it's easy enough. I mean, dude,
exactly.
Number one, a kid has drowned in the French Broad River. There's not even a possibility that one hasn't, at least one.
Yeah.
So that's enough for word to spread and for an urban legend like that to completely catch fire.
Yeah, exactly. It's why it's just like, it really isn't difficult to believe that event, even exactly how it was detailed in the story, could have easily have taken place.
Oh, yeah.
But, I did find even similar situations to this day have happened that are far too common just around that area of the French Broad. And, it's while it is kind of a natural beauty, it really does have its own dangers that people need to be aware of, especially
any body of water.
Yeah, any body of water, especially, ones that people view as recreational. And, I know with tubing and kayaking, you're typically in more protective, like floating vests, stuff like that. But still, I just think that people do need to be aware of some of the dangers that come with this. Because
100%. I mean, dude, even number one, you and I saw when Helene had just come through.
Yeah.
And the horrific force of the French Broad, just because that doesn't happen every day doesn't mean that thing cannot just catch you off guard. Yep. I mean, that's the other thing about it too, is the bed of the French Broad River is so filled with all kinds of different shapes and sizes of rocks and wood. You can get your ankle caught in that thing, and the next thing you know, you're in a compromised place and you're held under the water.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can happen faster than you can even think.
Yeah, and that's something that's been kind of just historically documented time and time again. In fact, in his book, Roaming the Mountains, the Western North Carolina folklorist John Paris, who we've referenced time and time again on this podcast, he actually had a piece in there that described the French Broad River as a gypsy, which I thought was an interesting comparison, kind of detailing the way that the river came, bolstered the economy, gave back to the area, but it also acted as a destructive force to the area, especially with the flood of 1916.
Yeah.
So he just kind of just reiterates that it can give and it could take away, essentially. So
it sure does.
So, and I think we did kind of see a prime example of some of the dangers of the river with the French Broad River Sirens episode, kind of like using mythological creatures like a siren to describe or like explain some of these dangers that are really just common scientific dangers that happen in bodies of water like that. But they use a creature like the siren to give you the analogy of being pulled under, when in reality it's a lot of times these undercurrents that are pulling you under.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, the big story at the beginning of that episode, or somewhere in there in the episode that I did a dramatization of, is the recounting of an occurrence where, if you haven't heard it, some young dude is out there with his girlfriend camping, and in the middle of the night by the French Broad River, he tells the story where he sees this naked man appear at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and just dive headfirst into the river, and never saw the guy come back up. He could have witnessed somebody dying. He could have witnessed somebody that dove in just trying to cool off in the middle of the night, clocks their head on a rock, and they drown right there in front of him. Or they could have witnessed some sort of paranormal experience.
They could have, but I think with that exact situation you're describing, I think he goes home and one of his, whether it's his family members or he finds something on the river siren, he's like, oh shit, I think this is what I saw.
Yeah.
So, when you have, it's almost there's a word for it I can't think of. It's kind of like an information bias. It's like the first piece of information you come to that could almost like explain away your situation, you just latch to that because that's like, oh, that must be what I saw.
Right. Creepy as shit either way.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, even in recent news, there's been a fair amount of tragic drownings associated with the river. And I don't want to use names listed on these because they are fairly recent accounts. And just out of respect to the families, I don't want to bring up anything sensitive. But I do think it's worth noting just some of the general descriptions around these because it could just show you how easily this can happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah. It's stuff you might not really think about.
Yeah, exactly. Just last year in May of 2025, a man's body was discovered wrapped in debris in the French Broad River, and he was identified as a missing person that went missing in December of 2024. So keep in mind, this was after Helene that he went missing, but it still seems like the hurricane debris played a pretty large part in taking so long for his body to be recovered just because of what a mess the French Broad still was at that time.
Man.
And it sounds like he was a fisher that just got swept away by or whatever, not in rip currents don't happen, but just an intense current going through the river there. And
wow,
with all the debris there, took a while for the recovery efforts to actually come through.
Man.
This next one, it hits close to home with our story today because in July of 2021, a 34-year-old man drowned in the French Broad River near the Craven Street Bridge after becoming trapped in a strainer, which is underwater tree branches and roots. So he likely got his foot caught.
Right.
And,
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there might just be something geographically, I don't know, just some sort of formation around that area that makes it really easy for the trees and logs and stuff like that to pile up. And
Maybe
just turns it into a trap.
Yeah. And I mean, these examples, they sadly keep going. And in July of 2018, a 63-year-old tuber died after getting in trouble in the water down near Riverside Drive, kind of nearby the salvage station. So that just shows even someone who's in a tube doing a leisure activity like that can get themselves in trouble in situations when you're not careful.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing about it too is there's a lot of different opportunities even outside of the river because it's like there's a lot of trees that overhang. And I mean, you could get like a piece of clothing snagged on there you can't get free. And then you're basically being like drug under the water by the current, but you're held up by, I don't know, like your ankle or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, these stories just keep going on and on. In 2015, there was a 19-year-old that I believe they had some sort of medical emergency. They drove their car into the river on accident and drowned. So it's just, these stories continue to pile up. Examples could honestly keep going back over time, but I'm just looking in like the last 10 or so years to kind of give you the recency examples that have happened to this day here in Asheville and what's seen as kind of a gentler stretch of the French Broad, if you will.
Yeah, so, I mean, and I would like to think that maybe we are slightly more safe as a society now, but then again, I don't know.
They didn't have bathing suits to get latched on then. They were swimming in the nude.
That's true. And also, we do a lot more dumb shit.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is...
Well, dude, I was at New Belgium one day, and there's a freaking dude on the French Broad River on a fucking jet ski. Number one, I didn't even know you could get a jet ski on the French Broad River.
Yeah.
And he's just cruising around doing circles in front of New Belgium. And I'm just like, is this legal? When did we start doing this shit? He's just stirring up the E. coli.
Little does he know. Yeah. Joke's on him.
Little does he know. Anybody that swims in the wake of his jet ski from here on out will die.
Yeah, that's I want to say that's surprising, but sometimes in Asheville, it's just par for the course.
Yeah, true.
But either way, I think all these just examples further iterate how the situation with the boy in today's stories could have easily have happened, especially back then, like you said, when maybe they were more careful, but just the opportunities for being saved or being rescued, the safety nets that are in place in a lot of things like that today weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how old this kid would have been, but
it doesn't really say. This is a pretty vague booking story on a lot of this. It doesn't give an exact date. Early 1900s.
But they seem pretty young.
Yeah, it says a young boy. So, I kind of picture that as probably like elementary, middle school age. I don't know why. That just kind of, maybe it's that coming of age movie that's coming to mind playing throughout this scene. And you kind of.
Yeah, Stand By Me.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I don't have kids, but in the event that I did, would not let them play in the French Broad by themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption, regardless of the poop.
Yeah, regardless of the E. coli.
So I do think it's also worth noting that the drownings, unfortunately, aren't the only tragic events that have taken place near this area that kind of add to the heavy emotional weight that we've already kind of seen this area seem to carry. Because browsing through Reddit threads, I found someone referring to a serial killer that they dubbed the Craven Street Killer.
When was this supposed to happen?
I think he was arrested in 2009. Some of the incidents took place around 2006. This might be one of the more disturbing and, not great stories that I have to share with you on this one.
That's fine. I think it's honestly worth knowing because, again, I had mentioned before, maybe this was also on the midnight broadcast, but I'd seen this YouTube documentary that some independent researcher put together. And dude, I think Asheville might have had a few serial killers.
Yeah. Apparently this was one of them because there was someone in Reddit just asking about just like old crime history of Asheville. And someone's like, oh yeah, we've had a few serial killers. The one comes to mind is the Craven Street Killer, and goes on to describe this. According to their post, he was killing prostitutes and chopping them up and throwing them in the French Broad River.
Well, okay.
Does this tie into the one that you were talking about on the Chicken Alley episode or alluding to on?
I think so. I mean, this killer was 100% targeting prostitutes.
Yes, this was. And he got caught because one woman escaped after he'd attempted to sexually assault her. It says that he stabbed her in the head. She survived. And she bit him in a place you don't want to hear about to be able to run away and get help. And in 2009, I guess a raid on his house, they found torture devices and a collection of human teeth in his residence. But on some weird, it says according to their post, or according to this post, it says he only served 18 months or something ridiculous like that on some weird get out. There's theories that he's connected to other murders, but it couldn't be proven. And yeah, after more searching, I did verify everything that was in this post in a Mountain Express article from 2009. Guy's name was Lewis Kyle Wilson, and I have no problem giving this fucker's name out because fuck this guy. And I don't even know if he's still in Asheville. Is the scariest part to me.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
it's like, is this motherfucker still here?
I don't know. I couldn't find anything in public record, but he was charged with brutal assault and kidnapping of a prostitute. He's also been dubbed a person of interest in an unsolved 2006 murder and several similar assaults in the River District area. Search warrants reveal details about his case, while people, and this is the other part, people who have known him shine light on the havoc and situation that he wreaked throughout the community, because the article kind of goes on to more detail and describe, the whole situation that was in that Reddit post in way more detail than I feel comfortable just like sharing on this, because it's already weird enough. I think I've already given you the gist for what you need to know.
Yeah.
But then it goes on to interview someone that knew Wilson. And they said that they described him as being active in the community and said that the case's impact has been wrenching on them because they never would have suspected him for anything like this. God. And it says, this really disturbs me. This was someone who came to our parties, was a babysitter to our children, and repaired our houses. It's wreaked complete havoc on all of us. And that was by someone named Morgana Davis, who's known Wilson since 1999 when she was interviewed by the Mountain Express. She said, to hear those allegations, there's a lot of trust issues now and a lot of people questioning themselves.
That is so terrifying, dude.
Yeah. And, like that Reddit post described, he pled guilty to lesser charges and got released less than 2 years later. And like I alluded to, I don't know if this fucker's still living in Asheville or not. And that is a honestly, genuinely terrifying thought.
Well, I'm not going to get into details because this entire thing sucks. Somebody that we went to high school that was a dear friend of ours was murdered while my brother and I were in high school. And their murderer got out, I think, in under 10 years.
Just a system for you.
Yeah. Works real well.
Yeah.
Glad to know that fucker. I don't know if he's still alive, but
Yeah, I mean, I
might still
tried
be
because
out
I
there.
sat there trying to like go through public records and being like, just for like, not only our knowledge, our listeners, like, not that I want to freak anyone else out and like make you feel unsafe in the streets of your hometown, but like that's just something you might, want to at least be aware about if that's someone that still lives here.
And to be perfectly honest though, dude, like I don't think about that stuff a lot, but every once in a while I will watch a murder mystery thing and I will watch some sort of, 3-part Netflix series that just hooks you in, and the next thing you're like, all right, fuck it, we'll watch episode 3. I think it's healthy to be aware that they look like people and they act like people and they walk and talk like people, but they're fucking murderers and they are anywhere. It's not Asheville. It's not California. It's anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And you can't live your life in fear, obviously, but I think it's healthy to be aware that that shit can happen anytime, anywhere, dude.
Exactly. And we don't like to be a true crime podcast, and we don't like to go too heavy into this, but this one, I mean, shit, we're talking about the naked ghost of the Craven Street Bridge, and this is the Craven Street Killer. Like, we've got to mention this on the here.
Exactly.
So, it's not great. It's not my favorite thing to talk about, but I think it's, at least ties into this episode, and it's something that I didn't even know about until today. So if you're, interested in that side of the true crime universe in Western North Carolina, that's probably an interesting rabbit hole to go down for you.
What'd you say the guy's name was? Lewis?
Not worth remembering, but hang on.
Yeah.
Lewis Kyle Wilson.
I can't remember if that name popped up in that documentary that I watched on YouTube, but I'll go back and see if it was.
Yeah. I mean, I even remember there was even a more recent case, separate case, where a young man dumped the body of 2 young women into the French Broad somewhere near that area after shooting them in some sort of drug deal or robbery gone wrong. And that was like in 2017, I want to say.
I happen to personally know the guy that took care of their bodies. That was a mortician.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Dang, that's sad.
That was awful. That was horrific.
Yeah, for sure. I do remember that because that one was, fairly more recently.
Very
I remember
recent.
that one hitting the news cycle and being kind of like, man, Asheville's not the small town you think it is when you see shit like that happening.
I mean, the other side of that too, though, man. I mean, our population has exploded in the last, if you look at us, I don't have the numbers, but if you look at what the population was in like 2003 compared to now, I mean, God, it would have had to have jumped 100,000 people.
For sure. But anyways, let's move past the true crime here.
Please.
I think we provided enough examples. I want to jump back to this naked ghost for a little bit.
Let's get back to good old-fashioned nudity and not all this murder shit.
So according to the North Carolina Ghost article that you sent me the story from, they say that naked ghosts are something of a rarity in American folklore. Although this topic of why ghosts wear clothes has been a surprisingly hotly debated one in the history of religion and belief in the supernatural, those arguing against the possibility of spirits of the dead returning to Earth have presented multiple variations on the premise that if a ghost is the appearance of a soul on Earth, for a ghost to be clothed, it means that the clothing must also be possessed with some immortal element capable of returning to Earth. To put it simply, they say if a ghost isn't barefoot, it means the shoes have souls. Which is a weird way to put it. I had to like double take on that for a second.
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that's honestly been a question on my mind for the longest time. Why do a vast majority of the reports of apparitions have clothing? We went over this theory a little while back of like, does the mind kind of pull what Neo does in the Matrix, where he has like the visual manifestation of what his mental inner image is? And it's like, are clones like this ghost clone?
So I actually found a lot of people that have kind of a similar insight on that. Just a lot of interesting ways to think about it that I think this kind of explores just a bigger question of not only just like the element of clothing, nudity or not in a ghost, but just like, where do these ghosts originate from to begin with? What do they represent? It kind of goes on in that article you sent me. It says the American satirist and short story writer Ambrose Bierce lampooned the idea of clothed spirits in his 1902 essay, The Clothing of Ghosts, stating that he would only accept a real spirit as one who appeared to him while completely nude. And he says, we draw the line at clothing. The materialized spook appealing to our sense of recognition of his ghostly character must authenticate himself otherwise than by familiar and remembered habiliments. He must be credentialed by nudity, and that regardless of temperature, or who may happen to be present. So they basically are just alluding to the same thing that we kind of touched on, that for a ghost to truly be a representation of a spirit in the next life, they got to be nude.
This man was subsequently tortured by his neighbor who had a dark sense of humor who would show up at his door completely naked for the next 28 years.
Right. That article you sent me goes on to say, if the clothed or unclothed spirit of Ambrose ever returns to this earth, we expect that he will at least have a definitive answer for us all. If you don't want to wait around for his spirit to return, the naked ghost of Craven Street Bridge is supposedly still seen until this day, when drivers in the early evening hours on the hottest days of summer are surprised to see a naked boy running alongside their car, who then disappears before he finishes crossing the bridge.
Well, yeah, I got a lot of questions there. I mean, most of the time, if you were to see a naked person in general, you would just be like, okay, got ourselves a Ray Stevens fan.
Yeah. I just picture like the What's My Age Again video, just like a ghost running. But the concept of naked ghost is pretty interesting because, on top of the humorous or, maybe terrifying image, depends on how you view that. Like I said, it does have a lot of just these underlying implications on how these apparitions are formed or what they represent to begin with. So in a kind of general Google search, I was looking for just the concept of naked ghost in general. And I found a perfume, a movie, a book, and even an adult website link, all titled Naked Ghost.
And I only spent 45 to 60 minutes on it.
None of them had anything to do with the Craven Street Bridge ghost. I was really disappointed.
Yeah. Tons of free porn, though.
But I did find a pretty interesting Reddit thread that was not even from a month ago, titled, "Have any of you seen a naked ghost?" And the thread said, "I've seen clothed, full-body apparitions. One was wearing what she passed in. I started wondering today, if a person died in a bathtub or were nude for some other reason, could they become a nude ghost, or would they choose to appear fully clothed?" Which I think kind of gets into some kind of existential, interesting theories on this and opens the door for a lot of it. And quite honestly, this thread was just a goldmine with lots of just thoughtful insights and comments, and honestly, some pretty bizarre firsthand experiences on naked ghosts in general. There was Reddit user
Sex at Midnight. Oh.
I wish they were in on this conversation. Might have to ping them. But we have Reddit user Mint Main. They responded saying, "I've always wondered how clothing seems to accompany a spirit. Obviously, the clothes don't die too. If it's a construct of the spirit's memory, I wonder how accurate to the back of the figure would be. That's a part that doesn't really get seen by a person." So they're saying if clothes on a spirit or something that the spirit is projected onto themselves, are they covering the backside of themselves too? Because that's not something that they're visually aware of.
Yeah, something to think about. That's
yeah, I know. It's all these questions that you would never really generally think of until you're sitting down pondering the reality of a naked ghost.
Yeah.
so I'm glad you're joining along with us for this one. Another user posted, "I'm guessing since they don't have a corporal body, they can manifest to present whatever visual of themselves they identify with the most," or something like that. "I'm sure there's got to be some pervy flasher ghost somewhere with unfinished business. The only bodied apparition I ever saw, other than a bazillion green glowing balls of light in my living room," that sounds oddly familiar, was glowing green like a Ghostbuster ghost and only had the top half manifested. He was wearing some sort of shirt, also glowy green, but I don't remember the details of that. Maybe he wasn't wearing pants, and that's why I only saw his upper body. Who knows? But he ran after us, and I nearly peed my pants. I was so freaked out."
A thought just came to mind. What if manifestation to other people in this dimension when you're in the afterlife is a skill issue? What if some entities are just better at manifesting themselves?
Oh, and that's why you get all these orbs that can't fully get there.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
And then you have full-bodied apparitions, but it's also kind of this question of are they able, I think we've talked about this before, but it's are they able to control the way they look? Are certain souls that are more skilled at projecting, I don't know, a younger, better looking version of themselves?
Yeah.
Maybe they can get to that point, because you definitely do have reports of ghosts that are older people.
True.
Why do you have that?
Instead of choosing to be the younger version of yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you just like your old seasoned body. Who knows?
Yeah. Or that was just the skill level you had to project it.
Yeah, maybe so. There's a lot of interesting theories on this. There's equivalent Brian 740 that had a theory that brings shadow people into this topic, which I thought was pretty interesting. Because he says, maybe a ghost chooses to manifest in this realm. They can manifest as they want to be seen / see themselves, clothes included. So kind of getting back to what you were just saying there.
Yeah.
And this is where we have stories of super tall shadow people and such. They are so long removed from being human that they forgot how to manifest as one and no longer view themselves as one, or maybe have never been one in the first place.
Interesting.
Yeah. I always like a good shadow person tie-in because, something that's come up quite a few times here recently for us.
I mean, that definitely kind of aligns with what you were talking about. It's like, okay, maybe that's all they can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've so far removed from being a human that that's what they think a human looks like.
Creepy. Oh,
yeah.
That's some purgatory shit.
So user Plato on Words adds to that with this real insightful response saying that if ghosts manifest with clothes, then they aren't spirits in a biological sense. They're mental constructs. People see ghosts in clothes because 99.9% of our daily lives, person equals clothed person. When your brain autocomplete features kick in to identify a figure in the dark hallway, it pulls the most common template of a human being it has. That template includes clothes. This suggests the ghost is happening in the observer's brain, not in the room.
Reddit, you're smart.
Sometimes Reddit is just like a cesspool, but this thread was kind of a goldmine.
Yeah, no doubt.
And another user actually shared kind of a crazy experience that their dad told them about. And he said, my dad shared with me that he saw a person running down the street completely nude, and he thought it was pretty weird. Later that day, he learned that a person was killed in a car accident where the car caught on fire and died in the nude.
Damn.
Yeah, so kind of a weird incident on that. But really the most terrifying post from this thread comes from Reddit user 4 Little Weirdos. And they say, I don't know if it was a ghost, but when I was about 14, I was laying in bed playing solitaire on my iPod, the scroll wheel kind. There was no light in my room besides a little moonlight. I turned it off and rolled onto my side. It wasn't 30 seconds later that I felt this weight on my legs, kind of like a heavy cat, but I didn't have a cat. I looked down and saw what looked like a naked, emaciated, bald man laying on his side against my leg, back facing me. I screamed, hopped up, ran, turned the light on, and of course nothing was there at that point. I cried and lay awake the rest of the night. I was too afraid to get out of bed again to tell anyone. Next morning, my mom said I must have been dreaming. I mean, what else can you tell terrified kids? I had seen moving shadow people that night, sometimes before that. I would fall asleep with my eyes open occasionally because I was scared, traumatic childhood, and was probably having hallucinations of shadow people. But this was the first time I ever felt something on me. It was serious, like a minute after I put my iPod down because I checked the time after I calmed down enough. This was my only naked ghost experience. I've had a couple other touch experiences years later, but very different from what I experienced that night.
That's a little bit of a tough one because immediately I think that you and I want to jump to sleep paralysis. And I don't want to completely take that out of the equation because I do think that it is relatively likely. It is kind of interesting the way that they describe remembering, like putting their iPod down again.
Yeah, because that almost, they seem a little bit more aware than a typical sleep paralysis incident. And they seem to almost, they allude to, they definitely acknowledge sleep paralysis incidents in the past where like we kind of hallucinated shadow people, but this was a completely different experience. So they're almost able to compartmentalize one and categorize whatever they experienced here with the weight of a person being a whole new experience other than the shadow people incidents.
I don't think that the remembering of putting their iPod down or whatever and that interaction is completely outside of the realm of being part of the dream, though. Because
Fair.
I've had, I'll just say, ever since I started taking magnesium, I don't dream anymore. I go into alternate realities. I'm serious, dude. I mean, the dreams that I have on magnesium are so absurdly realistic. I mean, they manifest like borderline memories. It's very, very fucking intense. Some people just experience dreams way more intensely and vividly than other people.
Yeah.
I think that judging by some of the dreams that I remember having when I was a kid, I think there's also something about the potency of the child mind. Because, dude, there's a dream I had when I was a kid, and I still remember to this day. It scared I can see it like it was plain as day. I've seen it for, 35 years now at this point. But I think that the visceral image that this person was presented with of, number one, being potentially, maybe this was a straight haunting occurrence like that. I'm completely fine with this idea. But I do think that there is every opportunity in the world for it to have been some sort of dreamlike state. But that experience in general, dear God, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
An emaciated, naked man laying on your feet.
Man. Yeah, with his back facing you. So I just picture him like kind of curled up.
And that I think that's what's so scary about it is because you're like, what's his face doing?
Yeah. Like,
what is he doing? Why does he have his back to me? That is terrifying.
Yeah, for sure. So just to add to the whole naked ghost party here tonight, that one's I don't necessarily view the naked ghost of the Craven Street Bridge as being a necessarily like scary entity. Maybe it's a little bit of a sad, melancholy type story. This one's downright terrifying to me.
That is very freaky. I do not like that.
So, naked ghosts, not the most common thing, but they do pop up. And I thought what was so weird about this is this thread was posted 28 days ago. Like, it feels oddly synchronistic in a way that, like, if we had done this episode a month ago, we wouldn't even had half of these examples to use as a resource.
That is really weird. I mean, I just Google searched just random whatever ghost haunting shit around here, and that one was the one that popped up. So
yeah, it's got naked ghost in the title. Of course, it's gonna catch an eye there.
Yeah, purely chance. The reason I picked it was just because it was one I hadn't seen.
Okay, yeah. Well, it ended up playing out at the perfect time for more than one reason there.
That is freaky as hell, man. Yeah, it's really interesting when you kind of get down into these rabbit holes where people are kind of talking about, mental manifestations and things like that in accordance with ghosts, because, the mind really is the only point of contact for any of this shit.
Yeah.
And it's
like your antenna.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like the ghost sightings that people seem to have, and a lot of the kind of weird sleep paralysis, demons walking into people's rooms and big, tall shadow people and things like that. I mean, it's so hard to kind of pull one away from the other because they really are just so similar. I mean, you and I've gone over many times ghost stories where I think there was one in particular where there was a guy and he was like sleeping on somebody's couch, like his parents' couch or something, and this entity like walked down the stairs and he like heard it and then watched it like peeking around corners and looking in doorways. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
This is ringing a bell, but now I'm sitting here, it's like, God, we've done like 70 plus ghost stories over the past couple of years.
It's
like
hard to remember that.
Yeah.
But I even look at a situation like that to where I'm like, okay, well, there's a couple things where there's a couple things to look at in instances like this. Number one, you're lying on a couch trying to go to sleep. You start hearing the house kind of popping and creaking.
Yep.
What's the condition or the thing that you talk about frequently where your eyes start to try to manifest shapes?
Oh man.
I can never remember the name of that damn thing, but it was the thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now I'm drawing a blank out of them on the spot. So,
but it's fine. Like when you're in the dark and your mind is trying to make sense of, kind of like what that Reddit user was talking about, where it's like, your brain is going to latch onto the closest form. It's basically the same concept.
Yeah.
Or try to manifest that or try to see it.
Yeah.
Try to piece that together.
But to throw this back to the naked ghost of the Craven Street Bridge, there's no way your mind would naturally just draw that conclusion of some little naked child just running through the night.
Unless you're a creep.
Yeah, as I was saying that out loud, I was like, there probably are some people, but I hope you're not listening to my podcast.
Yeah, and if you are, fuck off. Yeah, I mean, that's weird though. I mean, again, it was kind of hard to like kind of pin down a lot of that stuff because like you said, you weren't really able to verify a ton of that stuff.
Yeah, this one seems pretty elusive. So,
but people do talk about this.
Yeah.
It is not something that is just like, it just popped out of thin air. So, I mean, like, but it is an interesting concept in general because that has been a question that I've had for the longest time. It's like, why do a vast majority of ghosts manifest with their clothes on? I think the Reddit user there had a very good point. But the other side of it too is it would make, if ghosts were in the traditional sense, the souls of the dead that are coming back to this plane, why would they have clothes?
Yeah, exactly. And that almost leads you to believe, well, are they something else then? Or what is this? Where are they coming from?
Yeah. Or is the nature of our reality even freaking weirder than we initially thought? And honestly, the more we do these episodes and the more things that we look at and the more shit that we have to compare to one another, dude, I'm beginning to think maybe existence and being alive is just one very, very specific to us variable because we're currently experiencing that. Maybe it is like we think of it because we are alive and we don't typically communicate with those that are dead.
Yeah,
we look at it like it's either here nor there. It's either here or it's here. What if it could be 5 different slices of a big pie?
Almost like small town syndrome when you're like, you understand your reality of life because you've never really left the area you grew up in until you never traveled to big cities. You never traveled to another state. You've never been outside of the country. So like these other worldviews that are so common in other places are completely alien to you because it's not something that you've ever even considered or been presented with.
There's nothing that'll open your eyes up more than being kind of like soft robbed in Times Square. But I won't get into that.
Yeah, I'd say just travel in general. Like that's a good, easy mind expanding exercise that anyone can do.
Right. Well, dude, I guess we're not going to talk about naked ghosts, at least on this episode anymore, right?
I mean, do you have any other naked ghost insights to add here?
No, and I'm kind of glad I don't.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good on this one.
Well,
I hope the artwork is just like a pixelated, blurred out blocks on a ghost.
That's pretty damn funny. I am really tempted to do that. No more naked time. Naked ghost, please put some pants on for the sake of all humanity, or just do your thing.
Hey, times are different then. Don't judge the little boy.
That's true. I shouldn't
doing his skinny dipping. And
yeah,
if anyone does like live in that area or just drives near there, and be on the lookout for that this summer, I guess, because I would love to hear some firsthand encounters with the naked ghost of Craven Street Bridge.
Yep. I'm not going to hang out down there. You guys do the research.
Yeah, I don't want to get some weird charge just for witnessing this ghost.
All right, everybody. Well, that said, we've had some weird, really, really weird, odd conversation. The podcast is always fun. This one's just been a little odd. And hey, another thing that we found out tonight is we might still be living with a serial killer amongst us. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Well, all right. Well, if you or anyone you know has seen a naked child running across the Craven Street Bridge, maybe you just saw a naked kid, but if they disappeared, that might tip you off to the idea that, well, you might be seeing a ghost from the early 1900s. But let me tell you what, Austin and I, unfortunately and fortunately, do need to talk a little bit more about naked ghosts, and we're going to do that on our post-show, the Midnight Broadcast, the Midnight Nude Broadcast. So don't worry, we will be wearing clothes. But thank you all so very much for listening to this very odd episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. I think there were some really interesting questions posed here. And hell, if you yourself have seen a naked ghost anywhere and feel like talking about it, because maybe you need therapy after that, you can write us at ghostsinthemountains@gmail.com. If you want to know more about what we do, you can go to ghostsinthemountains.com. We'd like to thank Ron for sending us something in the mail. I haven't been by the P.O. box yet to go pick it up and see what it was, but Ron, thank you very much. You seem like a nice guy, and hopefully it's not a live snake that will attack us when we open it. But either way, we would like to thank everybody and our Patreon supporters who get access to the Midnight Broadcast. If you are a paid Patreon subscriber, you can have access to our bonus show. So thank you, everybody, for hanging in there, listening to a bunch of nudity and weirdness and murderers. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Ghosts in the Ghosts in the Mountains. Good night, and stay spooky, everybody. It's me again, Margaret. Are you naked? Did you ever listen to Ray Stevens back in the day?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they call him the Streak. My mom and dad, there was a lot of Ray Stevens happening.
Okay.
I remember Sitting Up with the Dead. That was another Ray Stevens song.
Okay.
And it was, and the video used to creep me out because it was like at a funeral and this dude was sitting up out of his coffin. It was scary for a kid. I was very young. Anyway, I hope that's the last time we talk about Ray Stevens on this podcast. All right. Good night, everybody. There's your Keister egg.